right, everybody, welcome back to Untangled. Today's guest is John Coria, a seasoned UX leader with a deep history in shaping product experiences and mentoring design teams. John, thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adrian. I appreciate your time and look forward to talking with you.
Me too. Okay, so John, I was telling you a little bit about my audience, mostly UXers. They kind of run the gamut in terms of where they are in experience. We have a lot of new people who are like, what is this thing about? And then we have some people who've been doing this a long time, like you and I. So, can you
Sure.
tell my audience a little bit about you? How'd you get into this space? All that good stuff?
Sure, I'm happy to. It's quite an interesting story. I actually started in technical writing. I have a degree in English, right? So I thought I'd be a writer after doing various jobs after college. And my first UX job was with a company in Nashville. And lo and behold, it was through LexisNexis. They had a global director of user experience, and he had come from Microsoft, and he actually became one of my strong mentors. I learned a lot from him. However, at that time, I was introduced to UX. It was already complete. They had a strata, right? They had visual designers, they had interaction designers, they had researchers, they included technical writers in that umbrella, et cetera. So I thought they were all going to be like this at opportunities and organizations. Well, no, that's not the case. So from one extreme to the other, I progressed through, but I have also done some different things. And I think that's what's probably contributed to being more well-rounded as a user experience leader. And that includes being a technical writer, a business analyst, a project manager, even a systems administrator. I used to and still sometimes build my own computers. So I have a background in tech quite a bit. And then towards the end, you put it all together and you realize that everything is experience, right? So who better positioned as a discipline to put it all together and stitch it together to make it a rewarding and a great outcome. So
I love
that's
that.
how I got into user experience.
Okay, I love that. Let's talk about your transition into leadership. Was there a specific situation? Was it an opportunity? How did you make that shift from a IC to a leader?
Sure. So I still think leaders from time to time, from mostly what I've seen and including myself, still do some IC work, right? You are able to keep your discipline and your chops, but I'm nowhere near the visual designer I used to be, an interaction designer, but I still know what good looks like, right? So that transition, interesting story. And this is something I think a lot of people should be able to relate to on different levels. Leadership comes in different forms, right? You can say, hey, I actually have direct reports, dotted lines. I'm responsible for a budget, and I have that experience as well. But also leadership comes from venerated senior user experience, designers as well, where I'm mentoring juniors. I'm helping others decide to go maybe into a principal path or to a managerial path, right? So I think there are different levels of criteria of actual leadership. And I will distinguish leadership from management, right? Anybody can manage pixels and manage people managing pixels, right? So that's just a task oriented management style. But a true leader creates other leaders and helps them bloom and blossom in the direction that they so choose.
I love that.
I was, yeah, I was at Home Depot, and I worked with a great guy who had come from Nike. He was a director, product management at the time, and then he left, and then I had reached out to him at another opportunity, and then I was brought on board to my most recent, and basically needed to really create and hone in and codify a team, interject it into a new agile movement, right, and a digital transformation. It was quite an interesting experience, as well as being in industrial manufacturing was quite challenging, more so challenging than even retail.
Um, Thinking about that, what made it so difficult? What made it challenging?
Unless a company is truly tech startup or embraces design thinking, right, and provides them a seat at the table, meaning having a budget of their own, having an executive or high level leader of their own, right? SVP, VP, et cetera. In other words, there is that parity with engineering and product management, IT, whatever. You're going to struggle a bit to mature the organization. I think a lot of us are familiar with the Nielsen Norman Group maturity level. Well, When you go in with zero at zero, where, hey, we're still just trying to figure things out, a lot of the time spent for UXers is justifying their work and what they do. There's still this perception of they zhuzh things, right? They make things pretty, they make things less kludgy. And that is so far from the case, right? True design thinking, truly talented and skilled UXers know end to end, right? From the generative research and discovery all the way to the implementation and learning exercises and all the nice little steps in between.
So, John, I'm gonna ask you a question. We didn't talk about this, but in listening to you,
Uh-oh, here we
yep,
go.
here we go. So sometimes I have a lot of mentors, and they're like, "Why do I have not mentees? Rather, I'm tired of trying to make a case for UX. Why do I have to keep fighting this battle?" Can you think of what has happened? Why are we still having to do that all these years later?
I think there might have been a larger shift. Again, like I said, it depends on the leadership style at the particular company or opportunity as well. If it's all top down push and, like I said, UX is some little buried P&L way over here under product or under IT or under engineering, you're going to see that battle be much larger at scale. So I think what makes it different is if you can secure that, hey, not only do I know the UX things, I have the knowledge and capability of the business acumen, right? And this is something that I try to tell my mentees as well and hold them accountable for that. You guys should know how to calculate ROI, right? Your human factors engineering background in your studies should remember that, right? Labor, fixed costs, depreciation. So when you're doing the prioritization and value, hey, you know what? They actually have data that backs this up, that we should move in this direction. And if you can do that consistently, I think you'll start getting the ear. Now, typically business analysts used to do this, right? Evaluate the processes. But you know what? UX is primely positioned to know the end to end, to say, hey, we're mitigating the risk as much as possible. Here's the value of this particular effort. Here's the confidence in the outcome that we're trying to drive. So if you can align more with the business, then I think you will get the respect and build that credence a bit more. So that's one of the avenues that I've seen. Now, contrast that with, well, we just have product designers. They typically will pick a ticket or they'll be told what to do to design something rather than being involved in the end to end. Here, make these pixels better, change this font, change the layout, etc. Right? I think there's been that kind of a shift, and you'll see it on a lot of job descriptions as well.
So, what I would imagine is when you said we should be able to prove ROI, a lot of people said, okay, but where am I supposed to get those numbers from? So, what
Mm-hmm.
organization how should they get that data to be able to make those cases?
Oh, great question. And it can be very difficult mining that data, right?
Mhm.
Because a lot of companies don't accrue or care about the data. It's unfortunate, but a lot of the opportunities that I've seen, data lakes, data marts, however you want to phrase it, they're all very immature and they're all starting to play catch up, right? However, one of the cleverest things that you can do, especially in a larger organization, to accumulate that data is to do some clienteling or networking. You need to get to know the people within the company. If you know somebody that's been with the company 20 years and they're kind of off in the corner and they're quiet, set up some time and pick their brain because they know where all the bodies are buried, right? But they also know about the data and their frustrations. And they typically made some comments or lamented about certain problems and issues, but maybe they've not just been listened to. So little bits here, little bits there. So when you come on and you're new, start setting up some time with people and introduce them. The people who are at the database architects, right? They know a lot and they can also provide views, right? Those are huge. If they have any kind of data fellows or gurus there that are in business intelligence, et cetera, same kind of thing. Ask if you can attend their meetings, right? Hey, because now you're the fly on the wall and they're putting out all these nice dashboards and like, wow, look at all these reports. There's some opportunities as well. Talk to engineering. What's the technical debt, right? How much debt are we spending here on just on maintenance, et cetera? How old are our platforms? What about the OPSEC lead, our security person? Do we really, how far behind are we? Are we on track to making sure that this is the secure experience? The better that you can acclimate to networking, and knowing the business. Here again, I'm going back to the business acumen, the better off you're going to be. And that's where you get the data from other people, especially if you're new.
So we've had this series. I actually heard somebody say that they're doing this again. They're creating the centers of excellence. And I don't know how many times we've done this, right?
Yeah, sure.
So we've done this. But in all of those, when you're starting a new organization or you're doing this center of excellence, everybody is hyper focused on that big win. So in your career, what have been like your big wins, your moments where everybody just got it?
There are a few where I've had to go back to the drawing board. Let's say in healthcare, there was an opportunity that I went back to, and there was a lot of ambiguity, right? And they were really trying to push towards being more SaaS oriented. And I felt the need to kind of chime in. It took quite a while to beat the drum. But to be truly SaaS oriented, you need to have a good common set of tools where the people that you're selling it to can administer. The cost of this particular platform was so expensive because it took months to set up. It took months to realize the revenue. Here again, back to the money aspect. So if you can try to find ways to do that, to say, how could we improve that stickiness, that business outcome, et cetera. Moving on to retail, you start seeing things again. Once you start getting that larger purview of an enterprise or a company's verticals, you should use your synth capabilities to be able to start stitching things together. In other words, it's perfectly acceptable to do internal journey maps as well, right? These service design blueprints. It's important. And this is something, I mean, we could get into the minutia of jobs to be done, right? That is an interesting facet too. And I think UX is kind of strayed away from that and hasn't done a good job of hanging on to that, right? That, hey, these are our process partners, right? As well. UX should become the SMEs of the organization is what I'm saying. And
Absolutely.
typically they are, right? So other opportunities include one of the things that you can do as a leader is still be involved in some of the IC work. Not hands on all the time, but be involved. Listen, pay attention to what's going on. And then here again, we can go into leadership styles, right? About empowering teams. But be involved. Listen to what they're saying. Be connected with that. The further you're off, if you're disconnected and you're just in spreadsheets and in meetings all day, you're not going to have that vision. You're not going to have that touchability. And as well as your leadership capabilities, you're not going to be able to have empathy with your direct reports as well. You need to know what they're going through as much as possible.
One of the
That way
things
you can figure out how to help them.
One of the things I liked about your profile is your dedication to leadership and growing designers and growing UX teams. I have seen in one of the companies I work for, we had my manager and I had our one on ones. I've been doing that a long time, so I was comfortable with it. But I saw a lot of the designers kind of struggled with like that one on one. Like, what am I supposed to talk about? Like, am I just supposed to receive
Sure.
orders? What am I supposed to happen? So, from your perspective, what's a good way to make good use of that one on one time with your manager or your leader?
Sure. This is where you can start injecting accountability. One of the things you need to set the tone is that they need to have full participation in their growth, right? And this is something that you learn from them. What are your goals? What are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to become in the next few years, et cetera? What path would you like to take? And then let's discuss your proficiencies at these particular goals. What level are you, do you think? Okay, great. Now you've got written it down. And then what's going to be necessary for you to hit those different levels of proficiencies on that particular path, right? All right. What tools do you need? What processes do you need? My job as a leader, your job as a leader is to help enable those paths to be open so they can go get those goals, right? Provide them with the tools, the time, the feedback, etc. Then, along that way, with those increased proficiencies, you give them increased responsibility. Give them that empowerment, right? But all that works if you give them a good, safe environment. It's okay to fail, right? I mean, unless we're in an ER room, hey, a few things missed here and there. Well, I went with this direction of this pattern. It didn't do so well. Fine. We can fix that. Trust the process. Because here's the thing, and this can be very difficult with leaders as well. If you have the right tools, if you have the right processes, and you have the right resources, funding, etc., and you place that onus and you empower that person, now there's no excuses. The tough questions always come even in a team dynamic or as a leadership dynamic, you should know this, right? If we have all those things and they're correct and still something isn't, the chips or the sparks aren't flying, then you have to ask yourself, do we have the right person in place? Right? You can only do so much. But again, if you have the right tools, the right processes, and the resources, and you accommodate that for your team. But if you have certain individuals that don't rise to the occasion, then you'll know playing field is level. I don't have the right person in place. I will have to make an adjustment there. And those are difficult times, but it happens.
Yeah. So let's change gears a little bit and talk about UX as a whole.
Mhm.
So when you got started in technical writing, what was UX called?
Actually, it was called user experience. Like I said, I was very fortunate to be involved with Darren Call. LexisNexis had a fully fledged, and he was the global director of user experience. He had come from Microsoft, and my direct report boss came from Microsoft as well. So again, I was lucky. And again, I thought this is where it is everywhere, but it's not. I've been in a single person from end to end in startups before to very large scale teams at the Home Depot, where Cliff Sexton has created a nice amalgamation and has placed and infused UX and most everywhere in the corporation.
Home Depot is one of those stories that I'm always amazed by. It's not even something that you think about, but they've done an amazing job over there.
It's taken a lot of time, and Cliff would probably tell you he's has a bloody head a lot, and it could still be very frustrating, but he did a good job, and I learned from him to swing big.
Tell me more. What is Swing Big?
So one of the things I was responsible for, I was moved to a location that was a bit difficult, and I was partnered with a new manager who was great, Claire, and we were working on roadmap visions, right? And I created one. And at that time, it was still that kind of that little small thing in the corner, little small increments and things. And then it was presented. And then uh, Cliff, the senior director, said, swing bigger. So went back and swung really well, big time, big, all the way to help the entire business, right? This big, huge roadmap, and then what could be reinvested in money on the money saved, right? The ROI, all those kinds of things, and presented to the some of the senior directors of product management as well. So that was an interesting time. Some really good work done. A good partner with Claire.
I love that because I feel like a lot of times, especially designers, feel like they need or they act like they need permission, right, to
Mm,
think big,
mhm,
right? So I love that y'all
sure.
have that opportunity. So for you, how do you feel UX has changed since you got started?
Well, I see a lot more, let's say, job requirements for product designers, right, rather than UX designers. Some of the mentees that I have had, some of their first jobs have been they pull design tickets, and I'm like, oh, you went to this school and you've got your graduate degree to pull design tickets, huh? And rather than, being fully involved from the end to end and having that type of influence. But I get it, it's a starting job. It's going to be a very frustrating and challenging aspect for a lot of people. And I don't necessarily agree with it. I think there is value in user experience and design thinking, especially the service design. It is something that is awfully neglected. And you'll hear in a lot of industries, well, we have Six Sigma people. It's not the same. It's not the same. Whenever you have people, you need user experience. People are tricky. People are fickle, right? And we have some new generations coming up with very high expectations. So if your company is behind in the digital transformation and your competitor is much more advanced than that, and they are listening to the feedback and they are listening to the wants and desires of the new generations, they will have the definite advantage. That is for sure.
And that's why startup companies get to come in and be disruptors, right? Because they are listening and they
Absolutely.
came out of a need and they can move so much faster.
They should be listening. Everybody should be listening. I mean, with the competitive aspects, right? If you don't listen to your customer, then you really have an expensive operating model. And that is something I try to tell a lot of the executive leadership. You can sit there and keep throwing darts from your head right at the target and what you think. If we can provide strong, irrefutable evidence that this is the direction to go, and the confidence level is above 90%, right? Because we have that statistical significance. So we've done the legwork. Wouldn't it be better to invest in those areas, right? Rather than just saying, oh, let's throw it against the wall and see what happens.
It's amazing how many companies still operate that way. I want to go
Oh, very
back to
much so.
something you said, that you're seeing a lot of job recs for product designers and not UX. So can you share your perception on how they're different? What's the difference between a product designer and UX?
Well, and you see descriptions creating delightful, pixel perfect experiences, right? Okay, and if they say, ask, please share your Dribble or Behance portfolio, you know what? There's a lot of good UXers out there and designers that haven't had all these real flashy things, right? Say they've created an enterprise experience that goes through accounts payable that is really elegant, but it's not glamorous. Well, you know what? It shaved, 40% off the level of effort needed to complete those tasks for this particular company, and their cost to serve got lowered significantly. That's a huge task, right? But a lot of these are still focused on adoption rate, et cetera. Um, so that's what I see a great deal. Um, it's unfortunate. I think if you truly see a great job description and an opportunity, it will house that, hey, we have a good strategy. You'll be working with UX researchers, right? You'll be part of a balanced team. You'll be working with engineering and product, and you will have equal say so, right? You guys will be defining the roadmap. You will be refining the problem space, the problem discovery aspects repeatedly. You should be working closely together with each one of those divisions, right?
Yep.
It's important. There needs to be that healthy tension.
Yeah. You brought up portfolios, so let's do that. When you are looking at portfolios, what are you looking for?
Methodology and process. If they've trusted the process, they've were easily adaptable. Um, I don't necessarily look at always the UI, right? That's fine, great, but did it accomplish the task? You guys had a problem. What was the impact or the value of the problem? How do you know it was a problem, right? What did you do to, what was your role? Those kinds of things. And then what was the impact or the learnings from it? And if you see something that was always a positive outcome, well, that isn't always the case. It's okay to put showcase aspects on your portfolio that, we learned a lot. This was the wrong path. Great. You dodged a bullet. Outstanding, right? You can go back to your product and engineering. You guys hopefully worked on it all together, and you go back to the business owner and say, hey, we thought this was the path to take, or you had some inclination, you maybe have learned something at a sales conference, right, or something like that. We did the discovery and the problem framing, and there's just no real value here for this.
I think that's the biggest win, and we don't talk about that enough, right? Like,
Sure.
we had an idea, we did some research, we found out that was a horrible idea. We're not going that direction. Like, that is I wish we told more stories like that, but people just don't really
Absolutely.
talk about it. I love that. I love that. So you have people coming out of boot camps and colleges, and they have their portfolios, which is really just made up of assignments, work assignments.
Sure.
Any thoughts on that?
Yes. So one of the best aspects of a great UXer is their ability to tell a story, right? And to be able to tell the story that you're referencing to, right, in your portfolio, you need to know that material intimately. Shouldn't be going when you're presenting your portfolio. Please don't read all the little bullets on the screen, etc. Just have a conversation. We had some people, we had some processes. These were some of the problems. This is how it affected their work, or this is how it affected our customers, right? And these are some of the friction points. And this is the value of it. And this is what we did about it, right? And then you go into your process, what you did, right? You went into problem discovery. You partnered with so and so. This is what you deduced or synthed out, right? You needed more intel on service design because there were some gaps in your analysis. So you went back and did that. Here's the picture. Look at it for a couple of seconds. Great. You're doing your due diligence. And this, what did you arrive at? Well, we arrived at this. And what was the outcome? Be able to tell the story, be intimate with what you're trying to tell, but don't be so focused and detailed and don't read your portfolio bullet points. People can grab that stuff, but
Yeah.
tell the story.
Along those lines, this idea of being able to track impact. So a lot of times we design things, we do research on things, it goes to development, they make whatever they make, right? And then we never really close the story. Like, what was the impact of that thing? How do you suggest that the teams go get impact or be able to track that better?
That can also be effectuated by your maturity level. That should be built into the process,
Mhm.
right? For the balanced team, if you have that kind of level of maturity and you're agile, if you're doing agile, and even if you're still in waterfall, right? There needs to be a carved out space for that. And you can do this in readouts, right? Presentations to the entire team or the org that you're working with to say, hey, here is our release. Here's our review. This is what it impacted, right? And this is how it translated either into savings, that margin accretion, or net new profit, right? Here again, going back to how are you moving the needle, right? If it was just a little bit, fine. But you know what? This set the precursor for something much larger. We needed to do these types of things. So you need to be able to trust the process, and you need to be able to yell it out there, as I say. I like for people to yell it out there. Um, Present it to a larger audience. Invite whoever wants to come. You can announce a lot of that stuff on the intranet. You never know who's going to pop in. It could be some of your executives say, hey, what are these guys doing over here? Right. But definitely that should be one of the areas of encapsulation at the end to say, hey, you know what? Let's wrap this up, put a bow on it, and we're going to present it.
And then everybody gets to feel like they got credit for that work.
Sure, absolutely. Right. And, one of the things that I think is necessary too is that part of that cohesion for the balanced teams is for during that presentation that the product guy, the engineering, and the UXer all take turns kind of presenting different aspects of it to show that collaborative effort. That also signals a level of maturity to the larger organization too. That hey, these guys are kicking butt over here. Look at this. They're all
Mhm.
working together.
Mhm.
Outstanding.
I'm trying to think which order I want to do these in. Okay, so there are a lot of people who are currently looking for jobs. A lot of people who are very frustrated. What advice would you
Mm-hmm.
have for designers, researchers, UXers in general who are looking for jobs right now?
So I'm one of them, right? This is very difficult and very challenging time. The tool sets have shifted, right? The demands have shifted. This is a very challenging time for very entry level and venerated people. So right now, currently, the platforms being used, since there's an overwhelming supply of workers, right? The demand is not matching that. And we know this, and this is the frustration part. You go on LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever, and you see hundreds or thousands of people have applied for this job. That's one aspect. But now it's turned into some kind of gamification, right? You have to outsmart the smarts. And this involves us using AI to beat the other AI that's reading your or ingesting. And there are plenty of lessons out there how to do that using the keywords, using the job descriptions. There's tool sets available for everybody to help level that playing field, right? And then there's the other busy aspects of this of reaching out to people on LinkedIn who are associated, joining their groups, trying to play hit and miss, right? And again, a lot of them are not going to give you any responses. You'll be ignored, etc. You'll have to have the tenacity. This is a personal decision. Is my time and my effort doing this with a seemingly maybe no avail worthy of my time and pursuit more? Or should I be focusing on a possible pivot in my life, right? To say, you know what, not necessarily completely away from UX and design thinking, because there's a lot of skills there that you could utilize to perhaps pivot into something else. And this is something I have always have become befuddled about where, well, how do I approach this? What would how do I begin? Well, you have a unique set of skills already, right? You're a UXer. Break it down. What's the journey you want to take? What's the current state of that journey? And then fill in the gaps, right? Use your UX skills to UX yourself to go into a UX pivot. How's that for UX, right?
Yes, yes,
So,
absolutely.
but that's what Everybody needs to decide, and it's a personal decision, and that's perfectly fine. You're more than capable of going into other aspects of life, including being an entrepreneur or a business owner. My gosh, if especially if you're seasoned at UX, you can do it.
Hmm.
Piece of cake. There's no super magic. You just have to have the due diligence, the investments, and you know what, and the passion for doing the pivot that you want to go into.
I would imagine by now my audience thinks I'm trying to get everybody to jump ship. I'm not trying to get everybody to jump ship, but it's just the reality of the situation.
Sure,
I tell people when we went into 2020 and the world stopped and we had all the digital transformations, there were UXers who had 2 and 3 6-figure jobs, right? Like they could
sure,
get away with that kind of thing, but they ramped up all that work. That work is done. So then if they didn't have anywhere to move them, it's going to cause that pendulum to swing the other way. So I'm not trying
sure,
to like make everybody jump ship. It's just the reality of the situation. There's a lot of us, and some of us need to start pivoting in other directions. But to your point, we have like that skill set to do that, right? We're
sure.
hyper aware and we can take all of these things with us. Okay. So with that, what is in your mind the future of UX?
Great question. To some of the mentees that are freshly graduating that I have spoken with, they ask for advice, right? And I said, well, here's my advice. If I were 24 or 25, and in this current state, I bet you have a lot of smart friends, and some of those friends are programmers. Get with those friends, hash it out, come up with some ideas to improve something, find a niche. And it isn't going to be the next social media app or a video app. The world, we got a lot of that stuff, right? But find a niche, either in finance is huge, healthcare is huge, something that you could specialize in, build your prototype, get the programmer behind it, and then start networking and marketing that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're your own boss.
Absolutely.
There you go, right?
Absolutely.
And if you need help, ask your other UX friends or ask somebody like you or me to take a look. Look at your business plan. We can look at the product. It's okay for somebody to play devil's advocate, right? And try to shoot holes in this because the competition is fierce, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all know this. But if you're clever and you have clever friends, utilize all that skill set you've learned to move yourself forward.
I'm so glad you said that. So I teach design thinking at UTA, or I did. And one of the lessons, completely dedicated, is criticism is a gift. So when people take the time to review those things and then they do shoot holes in it, probably should listen, right? That doesn't mean stop.
Sure,
That just means
sure.
think on it, right? Like, how do I get around that thing, right? And not take it so personal. I find it funny that UXers who get paid to tell everybody their baby is ugly are sensitive.
I agree. And that's something, one of the first hurdles you get over with, especially for new designers. And they come in and they put all this effort into this, and you do a review with their peers, et cetera, and or your leader, and it's not quite up to snuff, or hey, you missed some things here, you have some heuristic denial over here. This layout is not consistent with the others. Oh, right. No. It's okay. Number one, the process is iterative, right? That means go back, redo it again. That's always been the case. Whether you're in engineering or in marketing, it isn't a bullseye thing, right? And plus, especially if you're doing something without established patterns, and this is a net new product, this is an entrepreneurial or a startup, you should probably be presenting 2 to 3 different, maybe even 4 options as well, and then doing the testing on that, right? That's what user feedback is for. But you're not designing something for you. You got to get that out of your head.
It's not for you. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's correct.
What else were we going to cover? Oh, okay. Future of UX. Where are we going?
I think a lot of entrepreneurs should come out of this, right? And then out of that group, there might be an opportunity. Well, there you go, Adrian. Why don't you create your own site and own group for UX entrepreneurs?
Hmm.
They're very creative,
Mhm.
right? You start off, you get the brain trust in there. What do we have? Start inviting some programmers that are also unemployed. Idle hands. Well, I got the skills. I just don't have a job right now. Let's figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could be a future right now with UX. You can keep kind of doing and applying, etc., not hearing back, but on the side, you're spending hours upon hours on LinkedIn. Take a break. Do something productive for yourself, either learning some new skills. I know vibe coding is a big thing right now, but why don't we get together with a bunch of other people and start talking?
I've not heard of this. What is vibe coding?
Using AI, right, to start generating applications
Okay.
from prompting, right? AI will solve the world.
Okay.
Not.
Right.
It will not. It's still an infant. It's still very young. And right now, it's extremely costly. And I think a lot of companies are going to see that. That this is very costly. Where is our ROI on this?
I think that's going to be another one of those pendulum shifts, right? Like we're going to get rid of all these people because AI can do it. And it's like, oh, but you took out the person who was going to make sure that thing happened correctly. And then they're going to,
Sure.
we messed up. And then
Absolutely.
everybody's going to, y'all come back to work, right? I expect it to be something like that. When we talked earlier, you mentioned it was something that you said that has sat with me, which is there's dignity in all work. Can we talk
Oh,
through that?
absolutely.
Let's talk through that.
Sure. Well, a lot of people feel bad or poorly about themselves if they, let's say, have to take something less, right? Or do something that may not be as high pay or looked at as important. That's crap, right? Whether you're shoveling horse stables or working at fast food or whatever, it doesn't matter, right? There is dignity in all work. So if you have that ego and that pride, swallow that pill and get rid of it very quickly, all right? Because you do what you have to do. If you have a mortgage, if you have children, if you have expenses like most of us do in this country, you'll do what you need to do. And if it means going back to where you hustled a great deal, I remember back in college working two jobs and going to day and night school, then you do that. It's okay. So,
Yeah, those. I tell my husband now, if anything happens, I'm going back to waiting tables. I'm going back to what I was comfortable doing, right? Because I made good money doing
sure,
it.
sure.
Another thing that you mentioned is this idea that sometimes people are isolating. So let's talk about that. You said not to isolate yourself.
Sure. One of the detriments of COVID, right? And of course, a lot of this technology is the ability to communicate and view and do actual, some work, etc., without being in the presence of another person, right? It's not who we are. We're really not. And I think it can cause problems. You can easily fall into getting depressed. You can get anxiety. So yes, you may not have a job or whatever, but if you have an opportunity to go out with friends, either to commiserate, go shoot baskets, go bowling, whatever, people need to do that. You need to socialize as much as possible. We're sentient beings. You should have learned that a great deal in your UX empathy training, right?
Mm-hmm.
So use that empathy training with one another. It's okay. It really
Mm-hmm.
is.
I try to encourage my team go live life. So on our Monday meetings, what'd you do this weekend? Like if you are
Yep. Good for
tired
you.
and burnt out and not living your life, really you're not going to be that great of a UXer. You're not going to think big, right? Because you're exhausted and you haven't done anything to bring in some other experiences. I try to encourage people find something you like. Find
Sure.
something that you're entertained by. So I will ask this question, then we'll wrap up. So, John, what are you into? What hobbies do you have? Where do
Oh,
you? How do you recharge?
I get outside as much as possible. I enjoy hiking and going all over mountainside. I went out west several times this year. It's beautiful. Um, I have a couple of motorcycles that I take rides on in beautiful areas. I live in a beautiful area, so I'm very fortunate to be able to hike and motorcycle. I am a DIYer, so I do a lot of home projects all myself. I like film, and I also like to write from time to time. And since I was an English major, I read. Uh, I'm reading three books right now. One is called For Profit, and the other one is called Precision. And then I'm reading A Man from Moscow as fiction.
Okay.
So I like that as well.
I love that. Your cat has been tripping me out back there. We were talking. I didn't
Oh,
even. Is it a boy or girl?
that is Fiona.
I didn't know
That's
Fiona
one of
was
my,
back there, and then I was like, has she been there the whole time?
yeah, that's her window into the world of things that she would like to hunt and
Okay.
kill. That's one of my daughter's cats.
Okay.
There are three, but that one is Fiona.
Okay. Well, awesome. Well, John, is there anything else that you have coming up? Is there any last words you would like to leave with my audience?
I like to thank a lot of people on along the way, and it's been a very interesting journey, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak about it. Met a lot of great people, and it actually goes all the way back to a special person named Larry Costigan. He was actually the first leader and boss that was kind and saw something in me that really accelerated my career. He's a great guy. But everybody, don't give up. The world right now feels like a heavy blanket.
Thank you so much, John. I so appreciate it. I
Thank
just
you.
love these conversations. You've been great. Thank you so much.